comedian Jimmy Carr has always displayed a distinct taste for the tasteless in his stand-up routines and on his hit Channel 4 panel show, 8 out of 10 Cats. His deadpan humor is challenging to say the least, and not something that appeals to everyone. But it was during his recent outing on Netflix, in a comedy special entitled His Dark Material, that Carr deliberately pushed the boundaries of his brand too far for many with a joke about the Holocaust and a disparaging remark about the thousands of gypsies killed by the Nazis. He even introduced the joke in an arrogant fashion by saying it could be a career ender. Fellow celebrities have queued up to criticize him, including his friend and fellow comedian David Baddiel and the author Sir Philip Pullman. The Holocaust Memorial Day Trust said his comments were hateful. Boris Johnson's spokesman has weighed in. Culture Secretary Nadine Dorries described Carr's comment as abhorrent, and Health Secretary Sajid Javid is urging people to send Netflix a very strong message by not watching or listening to Carr. Others have gone further, demanding that viewers cancel their subscriptions. The Traveller Movement, a charity supporting the traveller community in the UK, said the joke in question was truly disturbing and goes way beyond humour. It has also launched a petition demanding that the streaming service edit the segment of the show to remove the offending item. Last night, it had attracted more than 13,000 signatures and counting. I do not want to defend Carr. As a clever man, an experienced stand-up and TV professional. He knew exactly what he was doing, and why, in initiating outrage. On stage in Whitley Bay at the weekend, after he was heckled about the Holocaust issue, he left the audience in no doubt that he had wanted to take on cancel culture. According to reports, he told them, "What I am saying on stage this evening is barely acceptable now. In 10 years, forget about it. You are going to be able to tell your grandchildren about seeing this show tonight. You will say, I saw a man and he stood on a stage and he made light of serious issues. We used to call them jokes and people would laugh." He has a point, but I would argue that what Carr has done is to actively promote cancel culture, to fan the flames feeding it. Taste aside, the joke that has caused the furore wasn't funny to start with. It barely deserves repeating, but for the broader points I want to make it is necessary to do so. Carr said, "When people talk about the Holocaust, they talk about the tragedy and horror of 6 million Jewish lives being lost to the Nazi war machine. But they never mention the thousands of gypsies that were killed by the Nazis. No one ever talks about that because no one wants to talk about the positives. Like I said, not funny. But does it matter if a joke is funny or not, or in such appallingly bad taste that it will offend many reasonable people? Doesn't a comedian have the freedom to tell whatever jokes he or she wants? And is it really, as one campaign group claimed, a celebration of genocide? No, it isn't. This is an absurd exaggeration." Many of those who identify broadly as conservative feel deep in their bones that freedom of speech and expression are far more important than the right of any individual or group not to have their feelings hurt. But nowadays, the massed forces of correctness and woke, the most censorious and intolerant forces of our time, have some powerful arguments on their side, however much we may dislike that fact. They might argue in this instance, for example, that Carr was deliberately targeting an ethnic minority, the Roma, who have been persecuted, marginalized and finally murdered by the thousands, and within living memory, thanks to the vile ideology of racial purity propounded by the Nazis. And given that this is the case, no one should have the right to make jokes about something so terrible as genocide. In the sort of phraseology favored by the woke, Jimmy Carr's facile quip risks legitimizing violence against ethnic minorities. Loyalists to the principle of free speech might regard this as nonsense. A joke is just a joke, whether you find it funny or not, and it places no one in danger of physical harm. Simple. But the truth is rarely simple, and freedom of speech flourishes best when it comes with responsibility. Jimmy Carr's joke was irresponsible, a calculated way of provoking and annoying the forces of censorship. But it has backfired. Carr has actually given those who want to censor us even more ammunition. Has like a naughty boy who has deliberately stirred up a hornet's nest, to the delight of the morally indignant and perpetually outraged, and while he may well get stung himself, so too will many others in his wake. Television bosses will, as a result of his joke, become yet more jittery and anxious, forever checking their Twitter feeds and social media to see if their stars or programs have caused any offense. The genuinely funny and imaginatively outrageous will have a harder time getting heard as a result, and our cultural experience will be the poorer for it. Free speech has never been entirely free, and, indeed, a society where absolute free speech was practiced would hardly be a society at all, but chaos. Nor is the instinct that drives the censorious woke, determined to silence anyone who disagrees with them or sees things differently, an entirely new development. Before political correctness, there was Mary Whitehouse and disgusted of Tunbridge Wells. Meanwhile, the BBC has been banning comedians since before many of us were born. Back in the 1950s, it banned the music hall comedian Max Miller and his song Let's Have a Ride on Your Bicycle, due to its outrageous lyrics. After the ride I began to perspire. It wasn't the ride, it'd been pumping her tire innocent days. Nowadays, in order to provoke a storm, and the cynic might say attract attention to a new show, saucy innuendo won't do. A comedian like Jimmy Carr has to make jokes about one of the most atrocious episodes in human history, the Holocaust, and the sufferings of the Roma. Arguably even worse was Carr's subsequent backpedaling, when he tried to make out that his quip might be educational, raising awareness that many Roma were killed by the Nazis as well. But none of this can come as a surprise for Netflix, market value $175 billion. With Carr, they can't pretend they didn't know what they might get. In the past, he has freely admitted, "I do a lot of jokes about rape," and previous gags about amputee soldiers have disgusted many. In his defense, Carr has protested that many servicemen loved his performances, and the black humor was typically squatty. From what I know of soldiers' sense of humor, I think he's probably right. After you've been through a tour of duty in Helmand, you're unlikely to get upset about a mere joke. But by exploiting the Holocaust for comedy material and then almost begging for attention by prefacing his show with the warning, or boast, that this will surely get him cancelled forever, Carr may well find that it will be the outcome which, in his vanity, he thought he could avoid. In wiser moments, the comedian has reflected on how the times we live in remind him of hysterical episodes of book burning through history. Quite so. So why did he give such a gift to the true enemies of free speech?